I never thought moving back home after college would be anything but boring. I grew up in a small rural town in Pennsylvania, the kind of place where everyone knows your name, your parents, and probably what you had for breakfast. After 4 years away in the city, coming back felt like a step backward. But my mom wasn't doing great, and I wanted to be close to her. She lived in an old farmhouse that had been in the family for 3 generations. The house sat on several acres of land, with fields on one side and woods pressing close to the other. To outsiders, it probably looked peaceful. To me, it felt isolating. The first few days after I moved back were uneventful. I helped Mom around the house, ran into a few old classmates at the grocery store, and tried to settle back into a life I thought I'd outgrown. But on the 4th night, something happened that still makes my skin crawl. It was close to midnight, and I couldn't sleep. I went downstairs to get some water and noticed movement outside through the kitchen window. At first, I thought it was a deer in the backyard, but when I leaned closer, I saw a man standing at the edge of the woods. He wasn't moving, just standing there, facing the house. I froze, gripping the counter. The porch light barely reached him, but I could make out his silhouette. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and seemed to be holding something long, maybe a shovel or a stick. My first thought was that it had to be some drunk local, or maybe even a hunter who wandered too close. But he wasn't moving, not even shifting his weight, and he was too close to be accidental. I went upstairs to wake my mom, but she was already asleep, snoring softly. I didn't want to scare her, so I just locked every door and went back to my room, convincing myself I imagined it. The next day, I checked the yard. No footprints, no disturbed grass, nothing. Still, I couldn't shake the image of that figure at the tree line. 2 nights later, it happened again. This time, I was lying in bed when I heard a faint scraping sound outside. At first, I thought it was branches against the siding, but when I pulled back the curtain, I saw him again. Closer this time, standing not at the woods, but in the middle of our backyard. And he wasn't just standing. He was digging. He had a shovel, and he was carving into the earth like he was making a grave. I wanted to scream, but the sound caught in my throat. Instead, I stumbled back from the window, shaking. By the time I worked up the courage to look again, he was gone. The next morning, I checked the spot. The grass looked untouched. No hole, no disturbed soil. My mom laughed when I told her, saying I must have been dreaming. But I knew I hadn't. I saw the dirt flying, heard the scrape of metal against the ground. That night, I set an alarm for 2 a.m., determined to catch him again. When it went off, I crept to the window and looked outside. Sure enough, there he was, digging furiously. Only this time, when I leaned closer, he stopped. Slowly, his head turned upward, and even in the darkness, I swear he looked straight at me. And then he smiled. I stumbled back from the window so fast I nearly tripped over the chair in my room. My chest was pounding so hard it hurt, and I couldn't catch my breath. That smile, it wasn't the kind of smile you give a stranger on the street. It was deliberate, cruel, like he wanted me to know that he'd been aware of me the whole time. I wanted to call the police, but what would I even say? There's a man digging holes in my backyard at 2 in the morning? They'd laugh, or worse, tell me I was imagining things. Still, I couldn't just do nothing. I grabbed my phone and started recording through the glass, but when I pointed the camera back toward the yard, it was empty. The man was gone. I barely slept that night. Every creak in the house made me jump. Every gust of wind sounded like footsteps. In the morning, I dragged myself outside with a shovel of my own. I needed to prove to myself that I wasn't crazy. I went straight to the spot where I'd seen him digging and my stomach dropped. The earth was disturbed. A small patch of dirt had clearly been turned over. Not much, maybe 2 feet across. It didn't look like a grave, but it definitely wasn't natural. My hands were shaking as I knelt down and scraped some soil away. That's when I hit something hard. At first, I thought it was just a rock, but as I brushed away more dirt, I saw it was wood. Rotting, splintered wood. Like a piece of an old box or maybe a crate. I didn't have the guts to keep digging. I covered it back up and told myself I'd let it go. That day dragged on forever. Mom noticed I was on edge and asked if I was feeling sick. I lied and said I just hadn't been sleeping well. What was I supposed to say? That some man was digging graves in our backyard and I'd just unearthed a piece of a coffin? That night, I stayed awake in bed with the lamp on, trying to read, anything to distract myself. But around 1:30 a.m., I heard it again, the rhythmic scrape of metal against earth. My skin went cold. He was back. I crept to the window and peeked through the curtain. This time, he wasn't in the yard. He was closer, right beneath my window. His shovel plunged into the soil with slow, deliberate movements, like he was digging exactly where he wanted to. I froze, terrified he'd look up again. But instead, he whispered something. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable, like a chant, low and steady. Each time the shovel hit the dirt, he muttered more. My heart pounded so loud I was sure he could hear it. I backed away, too scared to watch, and pressed my ear against the bedroom door, ready to run if I heard him come inside. Minutes dragged on like hours. Finally, the noise stopped. When I dared to look again, the yard was empty. I didn't sleep at all after that. The next morning, I told Mom everything. She didn't laugh this time. Her face went pale, and she told me she'd seen someone too, a shadow moving past her bedroom window the night before. That was enough for me. I called the police. 2 officers came, walked the property, and checked the yard. They didn't find anything except some disturbed soil. They told us it was probably teenagers messing around, maybe trespassers, and suggested we install motion lights. That night, I prayed the lights would be enough. But around 2 a.m., I woke to the blinding white flash of the floodlight turning on. My stomach dropped. I went to the window, and there he was, standing perfectly still in the middle of the yard. No shovel this time, just standing. And in his hands, he was holding something. It was the rotting wooden plank I'd seen buried in the dirt. I couldn't breathe. The man stood in the center of the yard, illuminated by the harsh glow of the motion light, clutching that splintered piece of wood like it meant something. From where I stood at the window, I could see markings carved into it, deep grooves that looked like letters, though I couldn't make them out. I wanted to scream for my mom, but my voice caught in my throat. The man tilted his head back slowly, and for the first time, I saw his face. His skin was gray and slack, like he hadn't slept in years. His eyes were sunken, but they glowed faintly in the light, reflecting it like an animal's. And that smile was back, wider now, stretched too far across his face. He raised the wooden plank to his mouth and pressed it against his lips. It looked like he was whispering into it, or maybe kissing it. Then, without warning, he dropped it onto the dirt, lifted his shovel, and drove it straight into the ground again. That was enough for me. I yanked my mom out of bed, and we called the police. While we waited, I watched from the upstairs window as the man dug furiously, faster than I thought possible. By the time the squad car pulled into the driveway, he was gone, just gone. The officers searched, but there was no sign of him. Not in the woods, not in the fields, not even footprints in the soil he'd been tearing apart moments before. But the hole he'd left was still there. The police refused to dig it up. They told us to fill it back in ourselves, said it was trespassers playing pranks. But I couldn't. I had to know. The next morning, when Mom went into town, I grabbed a pair of gloves and a mask and went out there with my own shovel. It didn't take long. About 3 feet down, I hit something solid. My hands shook as I cleared away the dirt, and then I saw it. Another wooden box, smaller than a coffin but big enough to hold something. The wood was rotten, the lid warped. I pried it open with the shovel, my stomach twisting the whole time. Inside, wrapped in decaying cloth, was a skull. I fell back onto the ground, gasping. The eye socket stared up at me, empty but accusing. I staggered to my feet and stumbled inside, locking every door and window in the house. When Mom came home, I didn't tell her. How could I? That night, I didn't even bother trying to sleep. I sat in the living room with every light on, clutching the phone. Around 2:15 a.m., the motion lights outside flared to life again. I forced myself to look. The man was back, but this time, he wasn't digging. He was standing at the exact spot where I'd found the skull, and in his arms he was cradling it, rocking it gently like it was a child. His lips moved as he whispered to it, his head tilting side to side. And then, slowly, he turned his gaze toward the house, toward me. I couldn't move, couldn't even breathe. He lifted one finger to his lips, silencing me, then pointed straight at the window where I stood. The light clicked off. When it flicked back on a second later, the yard was empty. The next morning, the hole was gone. The earth was smooth, undisturbed, like nothing had ever been dug up at all. The skull, the box, everything, gone. I thought maybe it was over. Maybe he'd taken whatever he wanted back into the ground. But that night, just after 2 a.m., I woke to a sound that froze my blood. The slow, steady scrape of a shovel. Only this time, it wasn't outside. It was coming from underneath the floorboards of my